This is Distant Replay.
Well, welcome in to another episode of Distant Replay. I'm Ben George alongside Mike Noto for a true crime episode. And today we're featuring a quarterback that most people probably remember, at least know the name. He had a lot of hype through high school, college, and as he started his NFL career, but a lot of issues off the field that we'll get into tonight on this episode. So, Mike, how did we wind up on Todd Marinovich?
So Todd Marinovich is a name that I think if you follow football, and especially if maybe you're in like the, let's say, 40 and above category, you definitely know who Todd Marinovich is, okay? And he came back on my radar as a listener suggestion. And look, I had known he had a troubled, decade or two. What he was involved in, I did not know. And as I dug deeper into his true crime story, I said, this is a good one to do for the podcast because it's a little bit different than ones we've done in the past.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that you're aware of, and then some things happen, but because he kind of just fades off the national radar and he's not as relevant anymore, you just kind of don't think about it, you don't follow his story. So I think there's a lot of details that I'm not aware of. I'm kind of like you, like I knew stuff happened, I just don't know exactly what. So I'm interested to kind of find out how that story played out and kind of fill in some of those gaps tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, this is one where I guarantee you there's things we're going to talk about in this episode that people may have known, okay, hey, Marinovich was into drugs, Marinovich was into this, into that, but little details I think are going to surprise some people.
Very good. Well, remember, you can find us online at distantreplaypodcast.com, on Twitter, Instagram, and then on YouTube as well. That's where we get a lot of these listener suggestions. Please subscribe. We're going to get over 2,000 subscribers here pretty soon, which is awesome. We've had a lot of great feedback, a lot of good comments, questions, just great community we're starting to kind of put together on YouTube as well. So we appreciate everybody that's followed along, spread the word, and help us continue to grow. But let's jump into tonight's true crime episode on Todd Marinovich. And I think it's important for this one, especially Mike, to kind of provide some background on his upbringing and kind of his family life.
Absolutely, and that's where we start as usual. And I think when people first got introduced to Todd Marinovich on a national scale, we knew him as the robo QB, okay? The robo quarterback from Southern California that was the next it quarterback. And the reason we knew that is because his dad, from the time Todd Marinovich was born, his dad Marv, was trying to create the perfect quarterback. His dad had been a football player himself at USC and with the Raiders. He had been the strength and conditioning coach for the Raiders as well. He actually quit that position in order to cultivate Todd and his playing career from a very early age. All right. His dad went as far as he started stretching Todd's hamstrings at 1 month old.
That's absurd.
It is absurd. They only fed him fresh fruit and vegetables.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
At 3, though, Ben, he was doing push-ups and pull-ups. So we both have kids in that basic age range. Yeah. I can't imagine setting a pull-up bar and being like, "Hey, go at it."
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the bathtub and just get cleaned off like that.
Yeah, we're trying. Yeah, yeah. Let's just survive the day to day. I hear you. No processed food for him growing up. No fast food. Right. But also he took it a step further, not just health related stuff. Todd wasn't able to watch cartoons.
Wow.
When he went to kids' birthday parties, he would bring his own sugar-free ice cream and cake to the party.
Jeez.
We're going to deep levels here to cultivate the perfect quarterback. And this translated to Todd being a very good high school quarterback in Southern California and also earning a scholarship to USC. All right. So when he went to USC, you remember Rodney Peete, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he redshirted when Rodney Peete was an upperclassman. Once Rodney Peete left, the next season he wasn't slated to be the starter, but the starter got hurt. Marinovich stepped in, had a better season kind of than everyone thought he was going to have. So that was his redshirt sophomore year. Then his redshirt junior year was kind of an up and down season, didn't really meet expectations. The whole time, though, he's at USC, he's not really seeing eye to eye with the coach. And this all sort of comes to a head where he misses an early January meeting in 1991, like a team meeting, and he misses that meeting to meet with agents. So at that point, he gets suspended indefinitely from the USC football team, and that leads to him, I think he was obviously going to go anyway, but he enters the NFL draft, gets drafted by the Raiders at 26th overall in the first round. He's out of the league by age 24 in 1994.
Wow.
So I'm going to go through a little bit of how we got to that point and beyond in Todd's true crime story.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they kind of got what they wanted out of Todd and his kind of his upbringing, but what do they sacrifice along the way to get to that point, right?
Absolutely, and that is something we're going to get a very clear picture of Ben here in the next couple of minutes as I go through his true crime history.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so we start in January of 1991. So this is in very close proximity to that Miss Team meeting I was telling you about. So all of Todd's incidents, first of all, happened in Southern California, specifically like the Newport Beach area. So he grew up in a very, very nice area of Southern California. January 1991, it's like 4 a.m. Todd and 3 others are stopped right near his mother's house in Newport Beach. Kind of thing where kids are walking in the street, making noise when they shouldn't be, obviously under the influence, drinking, so forth. When the cops stopped the group, though, they noticed Todd was hiding something behind his back. They search him. They find cocaine on him, right? So at the time, this is a huge story. This is this kid from birth, built to be a quarterback, huge name at this point. We're at like the height of Todd Marinovich being a household name at this point. You know, his father is just like, he speaks to the media and says like, I'm numb, you know, like kind of like, I can't believe it. His mother suggests that the drugs may have been planted on him, okay? And again, this is all in very close proximity. This is only 10 days after he was suspended from USC for meeting with the agents, like I mentioned before.
Yeah.
But like I said, that doesn't keep him from being drafted in the first round by the Raiders, okay? Now, when his partying starts to get really out of hand is now when he's hanging out, access to all the drugs, all the women, anything he wants as an NFL player, all right? Not that he didn't party before, but he gets into it a little bit deeper when he becomes a pro, right? And there's a story where I guess the Raiders just have a tradition back then where the first round pick would be in charge of throwing like the summer training camp party. Todd rented out a barn, turned it into a stadium. And supposedly there was like strippers everywhere, drugs everywhere, anything you wanted to do at this party. And it was like such a crazy party that Todd like is on record as telling Esquire magazine in 2009 that it was, quote, still the best rookie party ever.
Talking about it years later.
Yeah. So like he's talking about it still like, you know, almost 20 years later, you know. So that's how epic it was, you know. But I just thought that was an interesting aside, just to show you kind of he's getting very much into the party scene here, which again I don't think is uncommon, right? I mean, that part of it's not uncommon. All right, so because of his cocaine arrest from that January 91 incident, he's subject to frequent drug tests once he's in the NFL. And he's finding creative ways around these drug tests. We just did an episode on strange sports arrests, and we got into the Whizzinator with Ontario Smith.
Oh, yeah.
So no Whizzinator back then. So Marinovich went a little more primitive. He had friends who had clean urine, and he used to fill Gatorade bottles. Remember those green Gatorade bottles? They probably still have them.
Yeah.
He filled those with urine, and he mastered the process of warming up the urine in a coffee cup and warming it to like the right temperature for the test. And he was like, believe it or not, Ben, I know it sounds crazy, but he was like really successful with this.
Like 11 seconds on 70% heat. And you're at the right time.
Yeah. He mastered it. Like I picture him like a chemist in his like apartment with a microwave, like getting it right to the perfect temperature. But so he mastered that process. But you know what really ended up kind of screwing this up for him, and this whole scheme he had going on was one time he used the urine of a friend who had been drinking a lot, and his test came back and showed a blood alcohol content of 0.32.
Oh cow! Wow.
Yeah. And what happened was the Raiders were like, what? And they put him in detox. So he had to go to detox for testing hot for urine that wasn't even his.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And the Raiders did try to help him though. So it wasn't like a situation where he failed the drug test or whatever and they were like, hey, get out of here. He was a first round pick too. They had a lot invested in him.
Yeah.
They had an intervention with him to try to get him clean. And his solution was, hey, I'll switch to using LSD a lot because that doesn't turn up on the drug tests. So like drug tests, I'm not sure if you're aware, Ben, there's different panels, right? So you know what you're getting tested for before you get drug tested. So that was his solution. Like, I'll just start doing LSD and just get out of my mind because I know it's not going to turn up on drug tests. Well, he eventually failed another test. He eventually failed a third test, and then he was out of the league at age 24, like I mentioned before. So the cause of him, getting to this point was subpar play on the field. He did have some moments for the Raiders, but it was a combination of subpar play and obviously the 3 failed drug tests. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now there's like quotes from Marinovich and people who know him that say he actually at the time didn't even really mind the fact that his football career was over. Because at this point, remember, this kid is football from the time he's like 3 months old.
Yeah, as far as I can remember, yeah.
Yeah, he's just burned out. And this is his way of sort of acting out, a lot of people think, is getting involved with the drugs, getting involved with the drinking, and maybe it was a combination too, Ben, of him trying to experience things he never experienced like throughout his childhood, or maybe even into high school,
Right.
After he leaves football, though, like he was out of control a little bit when he was playing football, right? But after he leaves football, all the discipline in his life is gone, right? There's no structure. There's no, I got to go to practice today or whatever. And by all accounts, like he just completely spirals out of control with the drugs. He started hanging out a lot with high school friends that sort of introduced him to a lot of this stuff. Because remember, he's still living in the same area that he grew up in.
Yeah.
This is when he starts getting into heavier drugs like heroin and things of that nature. So we're sort of, I'm not saying cocaine is like great, you know what I mean? But I'm saying like he's starting to experiment with even harder drugs and doing them a lot more frequently. Mm-hmm. This leads to 1997, where Todd actually called the police to his house because one of his friends was overdosing on black tar heroin.
Damn.
The cops searched his house and found large garbage bags filled with weed. So because of this, he pled guilty to growing marijuana, misdemeanor possession of a controlled substance, and possession of a syringe. He did 3 months total in jail, 2 months in a regular jail, third month in like a minimum security prison in Orange County. So now we're starting to get leading into 2000 to 2009, which for Todd was like the time period where there was just a lot going on.
It's a bad time.
This was a bad decade. Not that from 90 to 2000 was a great decade for him, but this is when things really come off the rails for him. All
Which is crazy because this story so far has been pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a great point. So in the year 2000, he's actually at the point where he's trying to latch on with an arena league team, the LA Avengers. Again, we're still in LA. Like he, by all accounts, seems like he never left LA or Orange County area. In 2000, he's arrested on sex assault charges. They actually came on the field and arrested him on the practice field while he was playing for the LA Avengers. So he gets arrested on the practice field on sex assault charges. He was arrested based on the statement of the alleged victim and physical evidence obtained from an examination at the hospital. I mean, we've been through this a lot on these episodes. Someone gets sexually assaulted, they're encouraged to go get tested at a hospital. That test yielded some evidence of sexual assault. I couldn't find, Ben, any clear conclusion to this case. I mean, as you know, I kind of research everything pretty thoroughly. I couldn't find any conclusion to this case, but he was never jailed for it or had a trial for it or anything like that.
It's like it just kind of went away.
Yeah, it went away. So I'm just guessing here that maybe the victim decided not to go forward.
Okay.
But the alleged victim, we should probably say, decided not to go forward. But I could not find any conclusion to that 2000 sexual assault charge case.
Okay.
2004, Todd's a skateboarder, by the way, as we're going to see here in the next couple incidents. He's arrested for skateboarding in a prohibited zone and resisting arrest. Now for this, he actually gets 18 days in jail and 3 weeks probation. So now is where sort of his prior crimes are starting to kind of catch up to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, he's starting to get jail time for something like this.
It's all compounding at this point, yeah.
It is. Yep, exactly. And in 2007, another skateboarding incident. He's skateboarding near the Newport Pier Boardwalk in California, and he's arrested and charged with felony drug possession and resisting a police order. Okay? So this, again, it involves drugs and involves him to some degree resisting law enforcement. He pleaded guilty to the misdemeanor resisting arrest charges and the charges of felony possession on a small amount of meth now. So now we're into meth, and a misdemeanor syringe possession charge was dismissed. So he pled guilty to resisting arrest and felony possession of a small amount of methamphetamine, and got the syringe possession count dismissed, is sent then to a court-ordered drug rehab program. It's probably the best way to put it.
Okay.
So he does not face jail time on these charges. Instead of that, they decide, hey, look, sending this guy to a rehab program is probably best for him. So now we're introducing meth. So we have meth involved in heroin, cocaine, marijuana. It's kind of
LSD. Don't forget the LSD.
Oh, LSD. I forgot LSD. That's how much he was involved in. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So he's involved in just a lot of stuff here involving drugs. In 2009, to sort of cap off the decade here, he's arrested in Newport Beach after he failed to appear in court for a progress review on his rehab. So like you have to, when he got arrested in 2007, it's like, okay, we're going to send you to the drug rehab program, but we need to be kept up to your progress as far as your rehab goes.
Yeah.
We're not just going to let you go and take your word for it that you're going to, stick to your rehab program.
Right. Just put in a little bit of effort.
Yeah, exactly. Like, realize we cut you a break here and do your part, essentially. Exactly. Marinovich was ordered to be held in jail without bail until his May 4th hearing before an Orange County Superior Court. And, nothing really came of that.
Okay.
But I think they just wanted to sort of send them a message that, hey, look, we're being serious about this. You need to let us know your progress in the rehab program.
Right.
So all accounts after that, right, were that he was sort of making his way to like making efforts to get better, and all was quiet on the crime front for Todd Marinovich until 2016. And I think this is the incident, Ben, where if you remember anything about Todd Marinovich from the last decade that you may have heard in the news, this is probably the incident. So in 2016, in August, he was in Irvine, again, in Orange County, and he was found naked and in possession of drugs in a neighbor's backyard.
Mm.
So this is like, even his wife, so he met his wife in rehab, and even his wife said, look, Todd's had issues, right? But
yeah,
like this is very out of character for him to be like naked. And so even if he relapsed, like this is just very bizarre behavior, even for him when he relapses,
Yeah.
He got cited for trespassing, possession of a controlled substance, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of marijuana. And it was thought that the controlled substance he had was, again, methamphetamine. So this is sort of all the stories you hear about Marinovich, like from this point going forward, are related to him and getting better. He has a son now that, as you can imagine, he's like, training to play football.
Yeah.
So, just trying to better his life. Obviously still going through, all the stuff that an addict goes through. I wasn't able to find any recent stories on him other than that, he has a family and, he's just trying to live day to day, as an addict and get better.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should say, I know we don't interject personal opinion here a lot, but, I hope he does succeed in his journey here. You know what I mean? Because as you can see, he has some very serious problems. I mean, everything I just outlined here, Ben, was a 25-year stretch.
Yeah, man, it's tough. And like, it's now to the point, I think, where it's no news is good news for Marinovich. Like, if we don't hear from him, that's a good thing. And it seems like kind of making progress outside of that one incident in the last 12 years, which was a big one and a major one, but it's almost been 5 years now since he's popped up on our radar, so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. And, it all comes full circle back to Marv Marinovich and the way he was raised, okay? This is always the thing that's brought up. Whenever you mention Todd Marinovich, you mention his dad. And, like, there's a lot of conversations surrounding, did his dad contribute to his addiction and mental health problems? The way he was raised, the way he was pushed, the way he was kind of sheltered, like with one focus to be a football player, did that impact sort of how he ended up in the long run? I think it'd be naive to say it didn't have some impact, but you probably can't blame his dad for everything that's happened to him in the last 25 years. Would you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's kind of the root of the issue. But he's, you're still held accountable for your actions as an adult. So it's not like, it's on him forever. But I think there's those deeper seated issues that, he's probably battling with every single day going forward that all stem from that.
Yeah, he's dealing with addiction. He's dealing with the mental health problems associated with how he was raised. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot for Todd to process here. And again, I wish him well. So from, one thing to mention with his dad, Ben, is, Todd and his dad, they did reconcile. And later in Marv's life, he had Alzheimer's. And by all accounts, they reconciled to the point where Todd would go over there and help his dad and be there for his dad when he was going through having Alzheimer's. Todd's dad did pass away in 2020, but it sounds like, it probably helps Todd that, hey, look, I had these issues with my father. I had a very tough time period, but I was able to make things right towards the end of my dad's life. I'm sure that kind of probably helps him with all the other issues he has going on, but I thought that was something worth mentioning.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe a little bit of closure for him, just to be able to not the passing of his father, but just to be able to, have that relationship again and maybe put all his issues behind him. So hopefully that's a turning point in his life. But yeah, very tough story, man. It's that battle you fight as a parent, trying to make your kid, give your kid the best possible future, which I'm sure was his dad's goal, right? But balancing that and letting your kid kind of live their own life, it's tough.
Yeah, we all want the best for our kids. I think you can agree Marv probably took it to the nth degree. Probably didn't think about this mental health, impact it would have on his son. And look, in the end, at least they reconciled and were able to move forward, it sounds like. So
yeah. Well, interesting story indeed, and we hope the best for Todd Marinovich. But I thought that was pretty incredible life that he's lived off the field, especially a guy that had a lot of high hopes and expectations on the football field, but a lot of maybe demons fighting throughout his life. So appreciate that story, Mike. Again, if you have something you want us to go back and research and hear about, hit us up. Leave us a comment on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe on whatever podcasting app you choose to listen to. Had a great month so far, and we appreciate everybody that's listened and shared the podcast along the way. We do appreciate that, but we love to hear from you. Again, we'll keep these true crime episodes coming.
Yep, we'll be back next week with a new episode. Can't thank everyone enough, and until next time.